multiple trauma, where trauma, psychological trauma comes back in a variety of different ways. But he was reluctant to speak of his own experience. And I think there's an importance to talk about the Holocaust, as you rightly said before, in this much broader context where you have concentration camps, one sort of experience, but there's a whole range of Holocausts which happen, and this is one of them, and that's part of this justification. So with that, I'm going to read the poem. To follow, I put the stanza, I didn't put the page, but I put the stanza number. I'm not reading through the whole thing, because that really would take quite a while, but I'm going to read through certain sections that are of interest to me. You'll see why. And if you just look at where the stanza number is, you'll be able to follow. Stanza 2. I was born in 1929.
Again, we're off your
Yeah, that's right.
My father's parents.
It's not necessarily from the beginning.
Next page.
Okay.
I'm not going to read the full, if I read the full poem.
No, I just want to read
Yeah, okay. I was born in 1929, a very cold winter. My mother came from Munich, a very sophisticated, beautiful woman. We lived in a very nice flat opposite a park. I had basically a very nice childhood. I had my own room, all painted in white. I had a gramophone, one of those that you wound up. I had as many toys as you can think of. Because I was the only child of my parents. I was the only grandchild of my grandparents. Stanza 3. I never went to a non-Jewish school. I went to a school at the age of 6, which was in 1935. I had to go to a Jewish school. I didn't go to a non-Jewish school, where in actual fact the Jewish boys who went there had a lot of anti-Semitism when Hitler came to power. I'm jumping to stanza 4. And I went off and walked towards it. It wasn't very far. And suddenly our car, my parents had a car, the car was an Adler, came up. And the chauffeur that we employed, wearing a brown Nazi uniform, quickly caught up with me, got hold of me, and put me in the car, and said, under no conditions are you to go to the teacher's seminar or anywhere near it. And he said, I'll drive you past it, I'll drive you home. And he drove past it, and there they were, and they had taken all the books that were in the seminar, and they were burning it down, and he took me home. So my father didn't know. When he found out what the chauffeur knew, when he found out, he asked the chauffeur to take my mother and myself to the office, to the business, so we would all be together and not at home. And we were there, and after a little while, the two gentlemen who were the Gestapo came in to the business and wanted to arrest my uncle and my father. My father told them that he was a war veteran and that he had a medal. They left him alone, and they left my uncle alone, but my cousin, who was young, they took him. Stanza 5. My father came home, and they said to him, we're very sorry, but we have to take you into protective custody. And they took him, but they didn't take him to a concentration camp. They took him to a prison in Würzburg. The prison was at the end of what is called the Hofgarten. And every day, I can remember, my mother and I walked through the park at a certain time. I don't know how she got the message to my father, but my father was at the prison window when we walked past and we saw him. Stanza 6. After the Kristallnacht, we were asked to move from our very nice flat to a, not a ghetto, but a more Jewish district, which was of lower value, and we moved there. They came and said, you can no longer live here. Someone came and said, out, raus. I think it was at this point that my parents decided that this was not a place for the child, that there was not much future. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. That's stanza 7. There was a little Jewish school attached to Egerton Road, a well-known headmistress. She rose up when they had assembly and said, there are a lot of German Jewish children and they need somebody to guarantee them and look after them. And one little girl, the same age as I, stood up and said she'd like to have relatives, Jewish German children, and went home to her parents and told them she would like to have them. I don't know whether it's like acquiring a dog. Stanza 6. The Silverstones, being very nice people, said yes. They would have one. And my cousin wrote to my parents, and they took a lovely photograph of me. They sent the photograph to show that I had no defects. No, to show what I looked like. And they agreed to take me. And therefore I had a home, and therefore it was arranged. Stanza 8. At first, as a child of 10 years old, I didn't want to leave my parents. Obviously, none of you would like to leave your parents. But it was sold to me as a kind of an adventure, and that they would come later on to England, and then we would all be together again. But this was the easiest way of doing it. I was very unhappy about it, but later on accepted it, because I didn't have much option. Stanza 9. We got to Frankfurt. I don't remember exactly whether we came. I do remember that it was then time for me to board the train. And in front of the train, which was a special train, stood SA people. They're not stormtroopers, they're not the SS, they were the brown shirts. The SS were the black shirts. And they stood there and had some dogs with them because they had problems with parents, either trying to get on the train or at the last moment trying to take their child off. They didn't want everybody to see them. Some of the parents and the children in one of the halls that was there, I think it's a waiting room or something. I don't remember exactly what. You got a little tag with your name on and a number. And then, when they were ready, you were led out by some young Jewish men who were allowed to do it to the train and put into compartments. And the compartments, I remember, had numbers on it. And I think if you had a 6, you went into compartment 6 and said goodbye to your parents. And then you went into the compartment. The compartment had other children, little children of 2 years old, with some bigger girls there, who looked after them, the children in diapers. After you got into the compartment, the SA man came and locked shut the door and put a padlock on the door so you couldn't get out. And all you could do is look at the window and look out and see your parents well in the distance and the train left. Thank you. That's my thought. So that's my paper.
I have a comment. I don't think you need to justify doing this at all. I mean, you came with a justification, and it's, Lady Zell also, night is somewhat fictionalized. I mean, it's true, but it's also a very artful 100-page description of what happened to him and his family. And all of it is an important contribution.
It's very sad. I find it very sad story.
If you're looking for parallel justifications across campus, talk to somebody like Jack Stamp in the music department at IU, who's a very prominent composer, because what we in music juggle all the time is research and creativity, and that composition constitutes for the academics, or many of the academics in music, the counterpart for research in the purely academic field. Stamp, S-T-A-M-P, Jackson. He's also the band director, and just absolutely